In fact, that's what the Burmese government is doing because they would not have to compensate anybody. You see, so that's another technique. That's another strategy. You're driving them out without having to compensate them.
It's just militarization.
That's right. That's what it is.
How did you react to today, Joy? What was your reaction?
My thinking is you really need. I think while they're trying to do. To educate the mass people of all the other people, not the ones that are affected if they're all opposed. I think there is a need for international people to come in to help into that. It does not seem. I don't think it is really something that cannot be resolved, that cannot be addressed because I was just telling our speaker that way back when we had a big problem of U.S. bases, military bases in the Philippines, and it was affecting so many people. What we did was have an international people who all over the world who were not interested who were really against U.S. bases because we don't want war. They came to the Philippines, and then we have all these thousands of people from the Philippines. We had 10 days, caravan all over from the base to Manila. And there was so much focus on it. 2 years after the bases had to go out. So I think there's just a matter of, there is still hope. If people could really rise up and say, we don't want it. But if we only have very small portion of people who would be jumping up and down, there's not much that we can do because we're actually fighting against this big establishment, business people, government people. That's just very hard to do it. So you have to have mass of people to really say, we don't want it. We don't want it. But it has to be supported by some international, because if it's only the old people from here, they wouldn't also hear it. Media would not even pick it up. But then if you have people from all the different countries saying, yes, we support you, we don't want the people to do that.
Can you say just a little bit about your own work too? Because obviously you're going to be involved with people in that part. What are you hoping to achieve through your empowerment workshops?
Which area?
Oh, the one where you go across the border.
Which area? Well, this is mainly creating better understanding between people, because that's one way of creating conflict is where people do not understand each other. So what do I intend to achieve? It's mainly getting people from different, if you have monks who are Buddhists, who are Burmese, and then you have Karen people who are Christians, who would have, even if they probably come together, they will still have some kind of prejudices or not understand each other. So you put them together so that they will start to look at people as people, not as enemies, That we are all actually, the sad thing with us is we look at other people as enemies. We don't we don't see them as people. So if we can start to begin to look at each other as people.
Can I just ask you one last question before we sit down? What was the inspiration for you that really made you feel that you want to do this sort of work where you want to empower people through workshops? What inspired you to take that step?
I just feel that, if we just do not build that, the world is really going into more of hatred and divisions rather than, we emphasize so much the differences. We do not emphasize what is common with people. And yet there are so many things that people are in common with. And we do not look at that. There is so much negativity, even in all our approach, we look at differences instead of looking at what unites us. So I think that is what inspired me. That if you could only have people from different factions see that there are so many things that are in common rather than differences, you could start build better understanding of people.
Just lastly, could you give a couple of examples of what sort of things you see as being in common?
For example, you have Muslim and Christians, right? Of course, there's a big difference there. But there's so much in common there because there is goodness in everyone, whether you belong to this kind of faith or you belong to this other. There is that common origin that we are all created as good. So that there is, whether you are Muslim or Buddhist, there is some goodness in you that is the strongest, uniting force that people can have. But the thing is, we don't see that. We don't attempt to look at it. When somebody is different to us, we immediately, look at the negative thing. We don't dig into the inner portion of inner being of the person where the goodness is there.
So it sounds like from that the key is making visible that goodness.
Yeah, visible that goodness, because it's there. It's not out, because we are all created by a God who is good, who can never create anything bad. So there is that. It is innate in all of us that it's there. But we tend to forget that when people start to live, there would be differences because of the differences around. But it doesn't mean that the goodness is gone. It's still there. It's just a challenge of letting that goodness get out so that people can relate to each other.
Sounds fantastic. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.